Are we ready to begin?
We're lively tonight, aren't we?
Are we ready to begin?
Yeah.
And I need a proper sip of coffee.
Yeah. Let's do this thing.
That was a weirdly sexual grunt.
Should I leave?
No.
Yeah, I should.
Help. I didn't intend it to be. Fuck off. Don't actually, because then I'll do the podcast by myself. And that would make me sad.
Aww.
Because then I'd have to talk to myself for an hour and I'd get depressed. Are we just begin?
Yes.
Stop it, stop.
Stop it.
Fucking dickhole. Stop making that face.
It's my face. What are you on about?
Just like a...
I'm trying not to laugh at you.
Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it? Oh look, you fucking failed. Oh no, we should begin.
Can you get...
Every time I edit it, I just get fucking...
podcast, please.
Every time I edit Dan vs. World, I get mad at you just going, can we begin?
This is not Dan
and
versus
it's you
the
that's
world.
fucking ruining it. Oh, it's gonna be
I'm
the
not
same.
ruining it now. I've waited for you to start twice.
That's ruining the intro. Shut up. Fine, it's my fault.
Do you want me
This
to
time.
start it?
No.
You're so precious about your intros.
I'll fucking punch you. Could start it. Hello, Internet. I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
Okay. I was really fucking confused. I just thought you were being a knob. Cause
When am I ever a knob?
every single waking moment.
Perhaps
and
we-
several sleeping moments.
Perhaps we should explain just exactly what I was doing.
The thing. Fox thing.
No. Well, yeah, but why was I doing that?
Today's subject is movies.
Yeah, and an interesting fact about that particular fanfare. I don't know if you've ever seen it in its original format, which was basically, you know, halfway through it kind of goes, and then there's an extra bit on the end, which is that bit.
Yeah.
That bit was an extra bit that was added to the original Fox fanfare, and do you know why?
Because, I don't know.
Because there was a new aspect ratio introduced to cinema called CinemaScope, which had a wider, I think it's 2.35 to 1, as opposed to this, was it 16 by 9? No, it was 1.85 to 1 was the original widescreen ratio in cinema. There's loads of different ratios in cinema. I'm going to get all geeky in this, because I used to be a projectionist.
Oh, he will tell you the exact width of the film.
Back when cinema was cinema and there were curtains and stuff.
You know, if we start
And there was
discussing a movie and you
presentation.
go, oh, I put that one on. Let me tell you about this.
Yeah.
That was a real bugger.
And
It had three fucking
presentation,
tracks.
you would have the curtain would open to the right width as the title screen was coming, as the Fox fanfare was coming up.
Did they also hit their mics?
Fuck off. But obviously, the curtains would open to the width of the Fox fanfare at the right, and it was the right length for that. But because they had to open wider, they added an extra bit, so the audience would be expecting it to stop, and then they'd go, "Oh wow, it's wider now." Don't know what that was for.
Wider. These fake wide screens.
It's scopy. They made CinemaScope TVs for a while, you know. I think you should probably still get them, but nobody really.
Yeah,
wants
well,
them.
people still might have home cinemas.
Yeah, we could kind of have the main parts of a home cinema here, don't we? It's just
The sound part is because you would insist on it.
yeah, we have to have.
Oh no,
Well,
the sound isn't perfect.
yeah.
It's going to be shit if I don't have ultimate surround sound.
do know
My
that-
ears are going to start bleeding. Ah!
We've got 7.1 because we're limited to 7.1 at the moment because of our amplifier. But as soon as we've got a
That was fucking scary the other day. It just stopped making any sound, and I turned
no,
things
you don't need to tell the world this.
off and on again.
Don't need to tell the world this.
For like
I spent an hour trying to fix that.
20 minutes, and then he tried to spend an hour fixing it because he was really confused. And
I
then
had cables undone. I was trying all different things.
There's a little button, which I think he pushed, under the power button that has turn off all speakers. And because I normally use a remote, I don't think it would have been me. So,
well, next time
I'm going to blame you for making yourself shit yourself.
I was confused. Anyway, yeah, so when that amp goes, or when we get an Ultra HD TV, I'll be out of date again because Dolby Atmos.
Oh.
Which at that point I shall need to put an extra 4 speakers in the ceiling as well.
Fun. But just put it on the floor as well.
No, they don't have that format yet. Although they did toy with something called Sensurround back in the 70s, but they had to abandon it because the architectural structure of some cinemas was beginning to suffer. They were going to the foundation. Basically, it was
like an explosion, and it's actually the vibrations of an explosion.
Yeah, it was. They put in hydraulic buffers under the floor of cinemas so that when there was a big thing on screen, they would actually punch the bottom of the floor with these hydraulic buffers and the building would shake. But then they found after a while that cinemas were starting to kind of suffer structural damage, so they had to abandon that. It's called Sensurround.
Okay. But yeah, I'm glad they abandoned that because I would be shitting myself. Like the ceiling's going to collapse.
This is interesting. I mean, this is about movies, and obviously we'll get on to talking about different things to do with the actual movies themselves. But obviously, I'm really into the technology of it, and one of the things that I would like to discuss is the development of the technology and where it's maybe heading, because there is a lot of debate about whether or not 3D is actually worth bothering with. And then you've got this 4DX thing now. Yeah, I really liked the 3D in Avatar, and there is a considered opinion that the film itself is a bit shit without it. I quite enjoyed it as a film, but I would admit that the 3D was phenomenal in that. I mean, James Cameron. And when he went back and converted Titanic to 3D,
but most films just seem to do it half-assed, so it's not really
Yeah, they do like a 3D conversion. Yeah, what does work? And it will just be
like they slightly stand out from the background a little bit more.
Yeah, you get a bit of depth. But I mean, if it's filmed in 3D, minimal. That's different. But what does work really well is animated, I find.
Yeah, but again, only if it's actually built to do that. And
something that really annoys me is that 3D could be a whole fucking lot better, but cinemas went for the cheapest technology available, which was Real D. Which is why you get, like, especially if you see in like a sci-fi picture in space or whatever, if you've got a black background, you get a lot of ghosting, like the stars and stuff.
Yeah, I think
because the filters aren't that good.
I remember sometime they'd done something really stupid with the 3D, so you started actually complaining.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that was at a cinema or one of the simulators.
That was a simulator one. They'd actually. Well, you could actually see both images clearly because they hadn't. I don't know what they hadn't done. They hadn't put a filter on one of the projectors or something. But the way it works is each lens filters out polarized light in its simplest form. It's a bit more complicated than that, but basically each lens filters out a certain kind of light, and because Real D is not brilliant, some of that gets through when it shouldn't. Whereas Dolby 3D is apparently very good. And actually the best kinds of 3D are what they call active 3D, where you've got like shutters, but they're kind of battery-operated glasses that are in sync with the frames on the screen, so they actually close each eye off. But this is one of the reasons why I'm really interested in getting VR headset. I mean, I'm looking for I know the Oculus, what is it, the HTC Vive are really good for sort of gaming, but in terms of like affordability, the Gear VR for me would work with my phone.
If you're just wanting to like,
and that would
experience stuff visually.
Yeah,
Which
that
probably
should create perfect 3D because it's side by side, so each eye doesn't see any of the other image at all.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, this is kind of a side subject.
Yeah, but it's...
I do at some point in this episode want to sing the praises of the Geneva motion.
Geneva motion?
Yes, the foundation of cinema. It was an invention that until recently, until everything went digital and they sacked all the projectionists,
still bitter.
was a technology
I will
that,
rise up against machines.
that was perfect pretty much when they invented it and lasted over a century. And it made moving pictures possible.
I've got something in my teeth.
I will put a link in the description for an animation which shows how it works. But there's a thing called the Maltese cross in a projector, which is a bit of a really clever invention. Very simple, but very clever.
Right.
Which enables. In fact, I should show you. Maybe go onto YouTube and look for Maltese cross Geneva motion.
Can I just look it up
Yeah.
on Google?
Oh
God, I can't really reach the keyboard because I'm like...
Maltese cross dogs.
Maltese dog.
It's a phenomenally simple thing that just makes... Or just put in Maltese cross projection, maybe. There we go. How a film projector Geneva Drive or Maltese cross works, that'll do.
Okay.
Actually, no, do that one because the motion in camera and Maltese cross, because that'll show how the film, because the film is also it's crucial that the synchronization works. We used to have to time that when I was a projectionist to make sure that the shutters were moving at the same time.
If you want to pause the podcast and watch this video, or just we can talk about it afterwards, it's quite short. It's Motion in Camera and Maltese Cross by Art Makers, but it has two A's at the start for some reason. Doesn't sound like there's any sound.
So basically, I don't know if you can see. You can see that that's the shutter wheel.
Right.
So that's blocking off the light half of the time from the xenon bulb, yeah.
Mm.
But while it's open, the film is actually stationary. It's in place. It's not sliding at all because of the Maltese cross. Now, I was hoping that it would show.
Might have to find another one.
Yeah, maybe I have to look at the Maltese cross
Okay,
one.
don't
But you
watch
can
that
see
video,
you can see
sure.
how that shutter is letting the light through half the time, but blocking it the other half of the time. Now, the crucial thing is that the half of the time that the light is shining through the film has to be stationary.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to blur on the screen.
The other one is, hang on quickly, How a Film Projector Geneva Drive or Maltese Cross Works by Sunil Raj.
Indeed.
This one might actually show us.
Yeah. So it's basically you've just got a pin there that slides into a notch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a wheel.
Right.
And you've got like a Maltese cross shape. It's got 4 notches around it. And every time it slides into a notch, it turns it around a quarter turn. And if you look on this side, you've got the sprockets that drag the film down.
Right.
So that as long as that's in sync with when the shutter's open, the film, 24 times a second, gets light shone through it.
I'm assuming a person isn't spinning it by hand in the projection thing. It's like, faster.
Well, they would have done originally with the really old projectors. That's why the speed of old films is not necessarily that. There was a thing where they sort of remastered old films and put them more to a lifelike speed because they came out faster than. Anyway, we're going to end up. We should get onto movies because we're going to end up talking about the history of.
Yeah,
of
well,
the
you are.
technology. Yeah.
Can't believe you talk about
Background.
film view.
But one thing that we're talking about movies, which is moving pictures, and if you go back to when they first came out, it's something we can never ever experience, and I hope that we get a chance to experience something akin to it during our lifetime. The only thing I can think of would be possibly actual holodecks. But
VR.
if you lived in a world where there'd never been any kind of moving picture.
Oh yeah, I've actually been in VR once.
You have? Yeah.
Yeah. Forgot about that. It was at some careers thing, and they wanted to show off the technology. It wasn't great. It was quite low res, and it was just a roller coaster.
Yeah. I would imagine that could get quite realistic, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had.
But imagine if the only form of if you'd only ever seen still photographs, and then you were suddenly I mean, there were
It would be like
these exhibition
going
things.
into the world of Harry Potter.
People actually cowered. You know, at the first demonstrations of it, people were cowering and sort of screaming because they showed a train coming towards the screen, and people had never seen anything like that before. They thought they were going to get run over. You know, it's like
it's amazing how weird the people of the past can seem just because of what we're standing on now.
But that's
it's like Isaac Newton,
yeah,
widely considered to be a genius.
When you look back at, I mean,
no idea about,
especially nowadays with the computing age as well. It's just like everything that we do would have seemed like sci-fi magic kind of stuff to people of the past before.
Yeah,
that
if
stuff
you
came about.
got a time machine and went to them with an iPad, they would think you're a wizard.
Well, I mean, tablets and mobile phones and stuff like that. I mean, back in the sort of 60s and early 70s, that was Star Trek stuff, wasn't it? In fact, no, actually, Next Generation in the 80s came up with the pad things. What are they called in Star Trek?
Can't
remember. But they were basically little handheld tablets that we didn't have then.
Yeah.
And then ebooks came along, kind of. But is it a case of art imitating nature or nature imitating art, as Oscar Wilde once wrote? Because it's the creators that come up with the ideas, and then the engineers who try to make them reality.
Yeah, that's interesting how that would relate to maybe the golden ratio as well. Because you see that everywhere in art and in engineering as well.
Right.
It's the spiral pattern.
Yeah.
And that's actually the golden ratio is how aspect ratios are, I think.
Well, there's lots of different aspect ratios, but probably the more common ones would feel more comfortable that are closer to that.
Yeah,
ratio.
the most appealing aspect ratios adhere to the golden ratio. And so do our ears and eyes, in a way. I believe. But anyway, we're getting more into mathematics and technology rather than...
Have you ever seen Last Action Hero?
No.
We should watch it. It's probably one of the best or one of the better Arnold Schwarzenegger films. But it's a kind of an action thriller film, but it does play with the boundary between reality and behind the screen, if you like. It's a very good film.
I find that quite interesting when they do fourth wall breaks.
Yeah, it plays with that quite a bit. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it works in some genres, but obviously if you're watching something... But
it really fucks
serious
with your head if it's just like in the middle of something serious, they just do something stupid, like wink to the camera for some reason.
Yeah. Do you remember, did you ever see that 3-part... I know it's not really technically a movie, although you could say it's a 3-part movie, TV movie, I suppose. Was it series 10 of Red Dwarf or 9? Not sure.
Yes, when they...
The one where, like, spoiler, if you haven't seen it, switch off for about a minute.
Right, movies, massive spoiler alert. If you don't like spoilers, there's probably going to be a fair few spoilers in here.
Yeah, just
so
go home.
we won't necessarily have the forethought to put a spoiler alert before every single franchise.
Having said
just
that,
here, if you hear something that you don't want spoiled, just fucking run for the pause button.
Yeah, but just before you do that, I would just say come back and listen to the last couple of minutes of this podcast if you want to hear some exciting news.
Yeah.
Teaser. That was a teaser trailer.
For later in the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. What were we saying?
About Red Dwarf.
Yes, like that fucked with my head. That by the end of like the third episode, you're kind of thinking, hang on a minute, I'm the one that's being watched and they're in the real world. It's like we're in the
they
TV
go
program.
back to Earth.
But it's
and
the way they did it.
About
It was
them like jumping through TVs.
But it sounds ridiculous, but when you're watching it, it's done so cleverly that by the end of it, you're like sort of, what the fuck? Don't just kind of...
They've made a series 11.
Yeah, I did hear... do you know what's weird though? I'm not sure about canned laughter, because I noticed with the later ones that they'd taken that off. And it felt a bit strange at first, but then I'm not really a fan of canned laughter, so...
Yeah, I always found that with The Big Bang Theory, quite often you wouldn't be laughing at the actual jokes they're making.
I mean, you don't get it in cinema films, do you?
That would be really jarring. Mm. But if you actually take out the canned laughter from something like that, there's just a really awkward pause between everything they're saying.
Yeah, and is it... necessary? Sometimes it's canned and sometimes... I mean, they say... Some programs say this is filmed before a live studio audience.
I don't know.
I suppose there's a difference between that and then actually just playing the program to a live studio audience and recording their reactions, but...
Yeah. But once you actually get past the canned laughter, I just stopped finding that show funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, movies...
Yeah.
What do you think the future is going to hold? Because, I mean, cinemas are desperately trying to keep audiences coming. But...
Yeah.
You know, there was a time in the heyday of cinema that there were actually 19 cinemas in Aberdeen.
Funny thing...
That was before everybody had, like, TVs at home.
Like, right on my computer, there's a Netflix logo at the bottom. They completely destroyed Blockbuster, pretty much. I think there's one store left in Alaska. Although I think that actually closed down recently, and John Oliver had to rebuy his Cinderella Man jockstrap.
What?
Right, here's the story. Russell Crowe had an auction. I think he got divorced. Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to say an orgy then.
Orbiter's got port today. Because
it's quite old. I'm not sure whether or not it goes off. I know Sherry says
it just gets stronger.
Sniff.
Bloody hell.
You're supposed to have it with cheese, aren't you? Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so Russell Crowe had an auction of a bunch of his old movie stuff. I think it was because he had a divorce. John Oliver bought a jockstrap from the movie Cinderella Man. Don't know why there was a movie called Cinderella Man. Which was Russell Crowe's. And then donated it to the last Blockbuster in Alaska to try and draw people to it.
Right.
Then Russell Crowe named a koala chlamydia ward after John Oliver.
A koala chlamydia ward? Ward?
Yeah.
Koala chlamydia?
Yeah,
after John Oliver?
Humans and koalas are the only animals that can get chlamydia, I think.
Hang on a minute. So there's like
about half of koalas have chlamydia.
So John Oliver donates Russell Crowe's jockstrap to a Blockbuster, and Russell Crowe's response is to name a koala chlamydia ward after John Oliver.
Yeah, that's a sick burn, even more of a burn than those koalas got.
And then what? What happened next?
Well, that Blockbuster did eventually close down.
Oh, so John Oliver didn't retaliate, then didn't like go out and...
He visited it.
Oh, he didn't go and buy Russell Crowe's butt plug or something then?
No, why would... he was selling stuff from movies. I don't think.
Oh, right, okay. You might have had a interesting introduction to the world of movies. Might have, for legal reasons. I'm going to say
Hollywood is a
not
weird
did.
place. We should get onto that. Not butt plugs, but Hollywood.
What's the difference?
But I think they'd gotten rid of a bunch of stuff, and somehow this jockstrap got lost in the process, but they managed to buy it back.
How do you somehow lose a jockstrap?
I don't know. And they managed to buy it back, the show. And they had these wax presidents from the previous series finale. And then they used them in a heist movie.
What? What did they use in the heist movie?
The jockstrap was the thing that they're trying to steal.
What, the presidents?
Yeah. The wax presidents.
Wax
and
presidents trying to steal
some
the job.
actors.
This has got surreal.
It's funny seeing them like go down on a rappel line.
What were we talking about?
Blockbuster.
Oh yeah, that was it. I'm sure I read somewhere that they had an opportunity to buy shares in Netflix, and they turned it down.
Yeah.
Thinking that it was, it wasn't gonna go anywhere.
I think a lot of people potentially turned down the opportunity to jump on that.
Yeah.
And now
Well, it is weird because I do, obviously having grown up through the birth of the internet, I do remember Netflix when it was something that you could never see how it would work. But that was purely down to bandwidth.
Yeah. But now the technology's actually caught up with the idea.
Well, me and Mum were talking about this the other day because Grandma was talking about FaceTiming from down south at Christmas. And we were talking about how, you could do video calling on Facebook and stuff like that. And I don't know if you remember the difficulty we've had trying to Skype with Nan in the past when you were younger.
Yeah.
That was really challenging. And I think we had a slowish broadband speed then. But back when Netflix started, we were on a dial-up modem, and it was like an Hotmail or MSN Messenger trialed a video call kind of thing, and it just didn't work because dial-up you just can't stream video over dial-up. It's just ridiculous. But you see it sometimes when you see like reporters like in war zones or whatever that are reporting from their phone. You see the satellite link goes all choppy and stuff like that. I mean, that's infinitely better than some of the attempts
but they
that you would
are
have
from
on dial-up.
a relatively remote location.
Yeah. But now, I mean, we haven't even got fibre to the premises, and we can all stream high definition video to various devices around the house at the same time. So it's like Netflix was always a good idea. It was just ahead of its time, and I suppose that's the way that you make a lot of money, is by anticipating where the technology is going to go. But then again, that's another kind of chicken and egg thing, isn't it? Because does the technology develop to make your product? Because there used to be a thing. I remember watching documentaries about the birth of the internet and about the different things that made,
I think
like
the
Apple
most
computers.
successful CEOs have very long-term plans.
But Apple computers, when they first came out, were pretty much a failure because they didn't have what was called a killer app, which is basically some reason for people to buy something because it only works on that format. Right. So it's a similar kind of thing with Netflix. Is it a case of, I mean, the bandwidth was, I suppose, always going to, it's anticipating where the demand's going to be, isn't it?
But then,
I mean,
with the CEOs of today, they're actually investing in those technologies beforehand, so they're already ahead of the market on that.
I mean, you could say the bandwidth was always going to increase anyway, but would it have if there hadn't been a public kind of thirst or need for video streaming? Because apart from, I was going to say, obviously, transferring big files is another reason for wanting bandwidth, but then the biggest files tend to be video files, so the need for that bandwidth is really driven by the thirst for video streaming. So
I would say a lot of the social media sites would be a very different place now if it weren't for that. Like Snapchat wouldn't exist without that.
Yeah. And I mean, even to the point where we're now, when we're doing our video game videos, we're now using a bloody amazing, expensive gaming computer that we don't even know where it is. Well, I know it's in France, but we're streaming that live.
Yeah.
And I can't actually get my head around how latency free that is in terms of the controller matching. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's almost undetectable.
Yeah, well, computers are a lot faster than us.
But even then, you're constrained by the speed of light.
Yeah, but that's way faster than any human reaction speed.
But over what distances? I mean, it's 8 minutes for light to travel from the sun, isn't it? So, I mean...
But radio waves are longer per wave. Like, you get kilometers across in the same wavelength in terms of actual distance. Yeah.
But, I mean, in terms of... I mean, like, if the server is based... Because I know people have done, like, collaborative musical recording live online. And say if somebody's on the other side of the planet, they're what distance away?
But they probably have loads of different servers.
Yeah, but in some ways that would slow things down because it's the transitional points for a signal that are the latency risk, if you like. If you've got a direct fibre optic cable, you can get a bloody long way without any latency. But if you've got to go through different nodes that transfer that data, it's shifting out of the sort of light domain that slows the signal down, and it's got to get there and back again. So
yeah, this
is not really movies, is it?
No. Can we actually get on to... I knew that you were just going to go technology, projection.
Well, movies are technology, I suppose.
Yeah, but...
One of my favourite movies is The Matrix.
Okay, we'll talk about that, because that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the actual art.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you hear any weird noises in the background, my niece is over right now.
I think we're about to get a visitation.
Probably.
Yeah, so I
want to talk about Star Wars.
Oh, do you?
Because Star Wars fans are really fucking picky.
The first thing that jumps into my mind, actually, the first thing that jumps into my mind when you say that is, I can't remember what it's called now, the something order, the machete order.
Machete order, what's that?
It is, if you are one of the few people on the planet who have never watched Star Wars, it is an ideally recommended viewing order. And it seems not to make any sense, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Do you know what the machete order is?
No.
The recommended viewing order, I believe, is...
I'll look it up.
Yeah, you can actually completely bypass number 1 because it's crap and doesn't actually add much to the story. But you can put it in there. I would put it in as from a completionist point of view myself. But it avoids spoilers, and crucially, the biggest spoiler, which was the biggest kind of shock moment in the whole Star Wars saga, and if you've seen it, you will know what that was, isn't spoiled by watching in episode order, if you like.
Yeah.
Release order versus episode order.
It's machete order.
Release order's okay, but actually, for storyline, the machete order is kind of perfect.
It doesn't factor in the new episodes, though.
No, but you can then move on to the new episodes. And actually, having said that, the machete order will have changed now because you can... I would certainly... what we got here? 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. you could insert Rogue One in there. There is actually an argument that you would put Rogue One before Episode 4, because then going into Episode 4,
that makes sense for the
flows really well.
Death Star plans.
Yeah,
I could see that.
but because of if you look at that, you get the spoiler in episode what I was talking about in Episode 5. Where it's like, no, it can't be, before he falls down the big hole.
Yeah.
Has his hand chopped off. And then pretty much immediately after that, you go back to the backstory that created Darth Vader.
And it actually starts where Anakin begins to turn.
Yeah.
Right. Now I want to talk... We'll talk a little bit about the prequels reception, though I think only one of those was actually out when I was alive, so...
Can I just boast about something, though, before you do?
What?
That I was there. That I remember...
You were there on the first...
That I remember queuing
when it was
around
just
the
Star
block.
Wars.
I remember queuing around the block to see Star Wars.
When did they come out with A New Hope?
I'm not sure if it was when The Empire Strikes Back came out, but I know it was added for the re-release special editions, definitely. But I'm pretty sure it was before that. But yeah, when it first came out, and in fact, we've got the Harmy editions, the despecialized editions. I don't know if Disney are ever planning on releasing the original theatrical editions. I think they would sell really well if they did.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with them is that the sound quality is not as good.
Yeah, I think if they did something like they've done with Star Trek.
Yeah.
If that would be possible, because
they could do with the sound remastering.
Yeah,
but I do like the original.
Taking out the CGI, because I was wondering why it didn't look so dated, because I don't think I've ever seen it.
And the Jabba
the
the Hutt sequence in Mos Eisley as well, that wasn't actually in the original.
Right. And hand shot first.
Yes, hand shot first. But there's a fascinating... I would recommend having a look. There is, in fact, maybe have a look now, the Harmy editions. There's a great big long write-up on the Harmy despecialized editions and how he sourced all of this stuff. Because he's had to because it's never been released in original kind of theatrical format. It's there's like side by side comparisons of the different things, down to like he's been down to things that have been recolored and things like the backdrop for like on Tatooine, the horizon is like really impressive looking mountains in the we'll have to watch it sometime. I would love to do a side by side comparison actually.
Own series of fan edits that restored theatrical releases in high definition.
Yeah, he was. I mean, that's actually pretty damned impressive reading that. I didn't realise he wasn't in professional. He had no experience in professional film editing. Taught himself as he went.
Yeah, he was an English teacher.
So he basically used laser discs, recordings of TV.
To be honest, I could see a lot of my teachers trying something like this with how much of a Star Wars fan they are.
Yeah. It is...
Can you guess what department they're in?
Physics, maths? No? Yeah.
The bound to be.
Yeah. So anything else you wanted to particularly say about Star Wars, about that you were saying about the prequels and their reception?
But also the newer ones and their reception. Now,
they were revolutionary at the time.
The prequels?
No, sorry, yeah, the original films. Sorry, I digress. Go back to the prequels.
Okay.
They weren't revolutionary.
The CGI was quite impressive. Whilst it is not the best, it's still quite a step forward.
I'm going to say something really controversial now.
Right.
I actually quite like Jar Jar Binks.
The internet destroys you. You will never see the light of day.
in a similar way to he's a comic character to me, and that was always in the original trilogy what C-3PO and R2-D2 were.
Yeah.
It was like the comic relief.
I just guess he was a little bit too obnoxious on some of the scenes.
Yeah. I get that, but I think the hype
do you know
against
what the
him
weird
is
thing is?
overreacted. Kind of.
There's an entire backstory to him that he's like the Sith Master Lord, like Darth Sidious's master or whatever.
That would be bizarre.
And the reason that, like, in the Battle of Naboo, he was so good at killing all the Separatists was because he's actually a Sith Master.
Uh-huh.
In the actual extended universe, he is meant to be masterminding all of it, but I think they decided, yeah, fans would really fucking hate us to bring back Jar Jar Binks, especially if it was in such a... Jar Jar Binks. In such a weird off-character thing that you would only know if you were an absolute nerd.
What I did quite like, and it was often criticised, I think, the prequels, the earlier prequels definitely, was that it didn't seem to... they looked too futuristic in comparison to the original trilogy because of the special effects and stuff. Because the original trilogy was all done with like green screens and models and... Yeah, it was all real life film,
like hanging stuff down
until they did the special editions. But what I think was done really well when they came along with Revenge of the Sith was the transition back to that old look. By the time that, from about halfway through Revenge of the Sith, you began to see the style of the Empire taking shape. Do you know what I mean? It all kind of gradually became more retro and more minimalistic, and
yeah, maybe.
And I think that kind of mirrored the what you might call a step back in.
So that's sort of a meta thing in the effects, where because the Empire's meant to be darker and stripping away stuff,
taking
that
away
actually creates the atmosphere in the original trilogy.
It's kind of darker.
That it's getting into. It's interesting. But I do think, whilst there are a few really weird lines of dialogue that just didn't really work, and I think that's a lot where people are criticising them. The dialogue, like, I hate sand, that sort of thing. I think the way that they actually slowly morphed Anakin with the Emperor just giving hints and occasionally trying to bring out the darker side in him, whilst under the guise of this gentle thing, is quite interesting.
Well,
and I think it's done quite well.
I don't know whether that ties in with what I was going to say about how it is a bit of a case of art mirroring nature, because when you look back at the 70s and the early 80s when the original trilogy came out, I mean, Star Wars was originally always seen as a space western, basically, and it was clear who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. There was evil, and there was, and that was very much a similar kind of parallel with like the East and the West. I think a lot of people
didn't like that shift in tone, where there was a bit of a grey area between.
But it's more real. People didn't like it because it was the truth, because that kind of illusion back in the 70s and 80s, when the people on, the Reds on the other side were the bad guys, the communists.
And I think that's why a lot of people have that idea that you are either a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan if you like either of them. Because they're so different in terms of tone, because that's very... simplistic, I would say.
One of the intriguing things about the
Darth Vader's morals get interesting in The Empire Strikes Back, and that was a very weird film at the time, I think.
I found that whole dream sequence inside the tree a bit odd. I never really understood that. On Dagobah,
I don't remember Dreams.
when Luke goes into I think he kind of goes into a tree stump or something, but he basically has, I don't know whether it's some kind of vision kind of Jedi thing that's going on, but it's when he sees his own face inside the mask of Darth Vader. Darth Vader's mask, he chops Darth Vader's head off, doesn't he, in the kind of dream sequence, if you like, and when Darth Vader's mask burns away, he can see his own face inside it.
Well, that's the fear that he's becoming. And was that in Return of the Jedi?
No, I think that was in... Oh, it could have been, actually.
Because if it is, then that...
No, I think it was Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Because I think it might have been before the big reveal. Not sure.
But that's a little bit of foreshadowing, I guess.
Yeah. There was a vast change as well, and I suppose it really reflects the funding that was available, but I found the whole atmosphere of Return of the Jedi, a lot of it was to do with the soundscape.
Do you want to just
a lot more
pause for a
futuristic?
second? Sorry about that, we just took a brief break because my niece was running up and down the landing a bit. Yeah, so you were saying about the futuristic look?
Yeah, I mean, it was the funding that was available to them, obviously, with the success of the first couple of films. It was more the soundscape. Everything was a lot more polished. And I think that whole opening in Jabba the Hutt's palace, it all looked more expensive. But then I suppose that's right, because Jabba the Hutt was a rich kind of gangster criminal, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of that kind of Tatooine-based stuff in A New Hope was in a struggling kind of criminal world that was trying to evade the clutches of the Empire, if you like. So they were, there were dive bars basically, and
yeah. It's interesting. I guess the other grey area morally there with the original trilogy, although it's not really mentioned a great deal. I think he does talk to Ben Kenobi's ghost for a little bit. It's the not telling him about Darth Vader being his father.
Yeah. An interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is perhaps indicative of a different generation, because there was a time when things like that were maybe seen as protecting the innocent, if you like, when lies were perhaps acceptable for the greater good, if you like. But the only trouble is they never remain hidden. The truth never remains hidden completely. And once the truth comes out, it's a lot more damaging than if somebody had known the truth from the start. Getting a bit deep.
Yes. But something interesting with the new trilogy that I'm finding is that Rey's and Kylo Ren's journey seem to mirror one another.
Right.
Where we see Kylo Ren slowly turning better into a good one. A good guy, sort of. And Rey moving towards the dark side.
Do you think?
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole sequence in The Last Jedi where she goes into this dark pit. This metaphorical pit of despair, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which I think is meant to be Luke's failure.
Right.
And I think a lot of people just didn't like seeing Luke being sort of taken off his pedestal.
Right.
Because in the original trilogy, he's sort of the idealistic hero. And in that, he's a grumpy old man, pretty much.
Yeah.
And maybe it is just because... And various people will say, well, there are good reasons not to like those films and have criticisms of those films, but I think a lot of them seem to stem from this idea that, well, you can't touch Luke, because, like, that's my childhood hero.
No, Luke...
But I think it's just sort of bring that sense of reality, and because Star Wars is meant to be very escapist.
Luke was always a little bit annoying, though.
Yeah.
Han was always the...
And I think when they did that with Anakin as a kid, it was very annoying. Which is why I think, like you said, with the Machete Order, you can pretty much skip out that, because it doesn't really add anything to the development into Darth Vader.
No.
And that's mainly what the prequel trilogy is trying to establish. Whilst it does establish a little bit of Obi-Wan's background, Qui-Gon Jinn I don't think is mentioned again once. So it doesn't really fit. But I think a lot of people also just don't like... I mean, there was one thing which I thought was a very good point about the contrast between Han and Leia's relationship and Finn and Rose's relationship in that.
Finn and...
Rose's.
Rose. Who's Rose?
Not exactly. Like, she's the engineer.
Oh, right, okay.
But she's very forgettable because there's very little conflict between those two characters.
Actually, I was more thinking about the relationship between Kylo and
Rey.
Rey, yeah.
That's a good relationship. I think that's where the film really shines, even if loads of people are like, oh, I don't like it.
But there are kind of shades of... Because I wondered whether or not she had any blood relationship with...
I think a lot of people also...
There's an undercurrent there that there may at some point have been some, whether intentional or unintentional, incest going on. Because...
Yeah.
I mean, is Leia... Leia's obviously Luke's sister. Yeah. And Kylo is Han and Leia's son. Where does Rey get her strong Force tendencies from?
We don't know. And I think a lot of people...
it's pretty pure, full-on strong. I mean, it's almost as though she would have both parents would be Jedis.
I think a lot of people got angry that that's sort of question wasn't answered in The Last Jedi. And they're also building up Snoke.
I mean, I don't know
if The Force Awakens.
There was a point during those films that I thought, could Rey actually be Luke and Leia's?
I think what a lot of people missed was when they have this big battle and Rey asks about her parents to Kylo Ren when they're almost about to join together, and then she sees his intentions of self-preservation rather than the greater good. And over the course of that movie, they do very well at building the tension of who's going to turn to what side.
Yeah, Kylo kind of in some ways mirrors Luke's original journey, doesn't he? Because he I don't know whether it's deception or deliberate deception, or if he was actually trying to go down a better path during...
And I do find it interesting how they played that scene where Luke is about to break down Kylo Ren. They played that in 3 different perspectives.
Right.
From Luke's original perspective, trying to preserve his image.
Mm.
In Kylo Ren's perspective, from a child's perspective, I guess, and from feeling betrayed in that situation. And then from the truth.
Mm. In an effort to bring this back to more sort of movies in general, I would say that listening to a lot of your analysis of, I mean, obviously Star Wars is a beloved film series for you.
Quickly, the thing that a lot of people, I think, missed about that big reveal about Rey's parents is a lot of people thought that Kylo Ren's answer as they were nobody is a final thing. And I don't think there'd be any reason to assume that he knows that for sure.
Mm.
Although I do have, just from what you were saying then, an idea that they might actually be related, and that's why there's such a strong force link between them. Like they're actually brother and sister.
Yeah, I got that impression, but I don't know whether that's deliberate. Or this is one of the things that I was going to bring up when I was saying about not moving away from that, but just referencing one of the things that with you seem to have a very similar approach to films that I do, that I like to look for all the imagery and the symbolism and the metaphors and stuff like that. Some people like to just watch a film and just see the story on the surface, if you like.
Mm.
But I get so much more out of really looking into, and sometimes it's accidental imagery, but sometimes it's deliberately there. And certainly on repeat viewings of films, there are things that you can see that you wouldn't have noticed the first time that are obviously deliberately placed to kind of.
I really want to watch Breaking Bad again.
Yeah,
because.
Well, one that was a specific example of this was
Walter White goes into an entirely different light once you see.
Yeah, definitely.
The final couple of episodes.
A Star Is Born. Do you remember when we went to see that?
Yeah,
a little while ago. In the opening, and please, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this next few minutes. In the opening sequence, he's just finished that gig, and he gets in the limo and gets taken to the club. In the background, as he's being driven along in the limo, you see through the window a big billboard advertising something with a striking picture of a hangman's noose in the background, just as he's driving past.
Right.
And it's like when you've seen the film before and you know where the story's headed, it's almost like it's deliberately put there as a foreboding, just to plant that seed in your head.
I got a little bit confused because I originally thought that was a biopic of Lady Gaga.
Oh, right, okay.
No, like by the end of the film, I was like, she never actually got called Lady Gaga. What the fuck?
No, they were just the characters.
And she could obviously sing.
Star Is Born there's been several versions of it. Originally, I don't even think the most famous one I think is Barbra Streisand playing the girl, but that wasn't even the original. I don't think. I think the original was black and white.
Oh god! I'll just look up as.
I'm always doing things like that. Look up ass.
No, because we can't put that on YouTube. Which one? The original was in
Judy Garland,
1954,
and James Mason.
Not quite in black and white, but
it's been remade 4 times.
1937, actually, the original version, by the looks of things.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that one probably was black and white then, was it? No?
Yeah.
No, colour came along a lot quicker. No, yeah, Technicolor. Colour was a lot earlier in cinema than you would think.
Yeah, it's a lot earlier in cinema than TV as well. Because The Wizard of Oz, I think that actually came out earlier than that.
Yeah. When was
in colour for most?
Gone with the Wind. And Lawrence of Arabia as well. They're a lot older than I had expected.
1939.
Gone with the Wind, yeah. That's 80 years old next year. Oh, by the time this goes out, it'll be its 80th.
Oh, that's actual person there.
Lawrence of Arabia. That's 1962, so that was a lot later.
Yeah.
But Gone with the Wind, yeah.
Well, yeah, I would expect that because his original story was around the 30s, so it couldn't really been too soon after that, I don't think.
Now, bearing in mind that we've been recording for just over an hour, and
there's a lot more to talk about.
There is. I don't think we're going to fit it all into one thing. I mean, actually, while we were talking then, I was thinking, really, we should be doing a Star Wars episode of Breaking Bollocks.
Bollocks Wars.
Yeah. But moving on to a film I mentioned earlier, and this is maybe tying into the possible future technologies that are ushering in, shall we say, The Matrix. I loved that film when I first saw it. I have a friend who actually won't watch it, has only seen the first one and won't watch it again or any of the sequels because it freaked him the fuck out. He has panic attacks because of it. But actually, it's the concept itself
crises are fun.
Is actually a fairly established one in science theory now, isn't it? About
we are
simulation theory.
Now, I'm very aware that I do actually have simulation as a concept on the database somewhere, so maybe not get too much into the actual idea of simulation because then we've already talked about it.
But but talking about it in a different way, that Matrix series, what are they, the Wachowski brothers, is that what
they
were? They were brothers then. I think one of them's not anymore. I think that one of them had a sex change.
Oh, did they?
I think so. Maybe look that up. But anyway, they were very well received. But one of the films that they... Born Lawrence, now Lana. Yeah, one of the films that they came out with shortly after that, after the third one, was... Oh, are they both sisters? They both had sex changes. Yeah, they're now Lana and Lily.
Okay.
Both trans women. Was one of the biggest flops in cinema history, and I actually quite enjoyed it. Do you remember Speed Racer?
Wait, I thought you were talking about The Matrix. Were you still talking about The Matrix then?
Well, I've kind of veered off The Matrix because you were saying about talking about it in simulation, but the Wachowski brothers were the filmmakers.
The sequel.
Which one?
The sequels.
Right.
I think just a lot of people got bored with the philosophy. Like,
it's quite hard to follow.
Yeah, an interesting story about The Matrix actually is the Wachowski brothers, now sisters, actually made all the main actors read tons of philosophy and take a test on it.
Right.
The only person that passed it first time was Lawrence Fishburne.
Because isn't there
and he was just like, well, it's just easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because Lawrence Fishburne is a badass.
But you can kind of see that when he first appears with the red pill, blue pill thing. It's like you can see his voice just tells you that he knows his shit. But the whole kind of path of Neo is very, very much paralleled with the sort of Christ figure, isn't it? The kind of sacrificed saviour, if you like.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
And a resurrection.
Biblical comparisons you can make with a lot of different movies, because... Well, they're some of the original stories, I guess, when you're talking about like a David and Goliath story that originates in the Bible. I think...
Yeah.
Would you say Rocky's a David and Goliath story? Yeah, because it's just like
I'm not sure.
A professional boxer just says that he'll fight some random guy in the street, doesn't he?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. But then, getting onto the sort of theological side of it, that is simply a reflection of the fact that biblical stories are just retellings of ancient myths, which have always been
Epic
retold.
of Gilgamesh is the origin of the flood story,
And those stories last because they are such good stories, you know. There's a fascinating, and we really must get back onto Star Trek watching. There's a fascinating episode in Deep Space Nine. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically they come across a civilization whose whole philosophy and whole culture and whole means of communication is based around storytelling. So their language, they don't speak in direct terms. When they're conversing, they do it by telling stories to each other.
right?
Or referencing different characters in well-known stories. Like they'll you know, if they want to talk about a particular action or a particular event, they'll say the character's name in whatever story, because then the listener will know that they're talking about a particular thing because they know that story. Do you know what I mean? And I think movies are... Leave my mic alone. Or my bad mic technique. They're just evidence that we are a storytelling species, and I think
that's
it's
just
fiction in its right
the nature
place.
of language and writing.
Yeah, symbolic representation, isn't it?
And it's very much how humans have risen to dominance of the earth through their ability, through language, to teach one another. And if we preserve that through writing and now the art of film, and I guess one day maybe memes will be a storytelling format. That's how we learn. You learn so much from films.
Yeah.
And TV and writings and the printing press, because of its ability to spread skills so fast, brought in a new era of technology.
And it kind of, I suppose that was the beginning of what you would hope is the freeing of the proletariat, really, isn't it? The kind of...
Yeah, with each generation, more information got free. And now with the internet, I mean, it's practically anarchy, but it's...
Do you know, the way things are going, do you know, this is kind of going off on a tangent slightly, but I got really worried last night. Me and Mum was out watching the news. Well, not worried, but shocked that we were watching some of the stuff going on from Parliament. They're talking about, I'm sorry, we're getting on to politics, okay. Brexit.
We'll go back to films as soon as you finish.
There will be a Brexit the movie at some point. Anyway,
they're already making it.
I just thought it was ridiculous that they were talking in our Parliament about stockpiling weapons
and medicine.
And I thought, hang on a minute, do you know how we would react to hearing that being reported from Russia? If they were talking about stockpiling weapons, how would we see that from the outside? And these are the people that are in charge. And I just think that I just wanted to drop into the conversation that the only thing I think that is going to change, I mean, what's his name? Trump's just said they've defeated ISIS, so they're pulling out of Syria immediately.
But they'll go back in, making a mess of it.
But anyway, my point is slightly unrelated.
Favourite.
I think we need a world revolution.
Okay, before you become
a global revolution.
Give up. I think
they need to remove all of the power people at the same time, because the problem is I can see the logic behind thinking about stockpiling weapons when there's some nutter in charge of another country that could easily wipe you out if you weren't well defended.
I think global
but
anarchy
normal people
would
have had
be
enough.
A slight step back. Because then
revolution doesn't mean anarchy.
Yeah, but it would imply that if no nutters are going to be in charge, that no one's going to be in charge, because there's always going to be nutters, and those are the people that are drawn to power.
Yeah, it's just not achievable, is it? But maybe globalization will make it more possible, because it will only be one power system to overthrow it, and it will be all done in one go. But that's just Anyway, sorry, movies.
Yeah. With The Matrix Reloaded and what's the last one?
Revolutions.
There we go. A lot, just there's entire blocks, like 10-minute blocks of just talking about philosophy.
It's pretty much rebooting reality, isn't it? That Revolutions.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because you don't have the same journey of him learning that he is the one and learning how to control that universe, because he's already pretty much mastered it. But then he has to go on a much more personal journey in the real world and within the Matrix to decide if he's willing to sacrifice himself and fulfill his destiny and all that.
And that is a fundamental question that I think anyone who's watched those films asks ourselves and lives through that choice with the Judas, if you like, from the first film. Basically, faced with a choice between a nightmare reality and a comfortable, happy illusion, what would you choose?
I think...
Would you like to be in that restaurant eating that nice juicy steak, or do you want to be in a post-apocalyptic
I think that's
horror?
why a lot of people don't like the world right now, because it's always been shit.
Yeah.
It's been way shittier before. In the recent past and now. Well, recent past and far away past. Oh, okay. I don't know anymore.
But in a way, that's a kind of a metaphor for religion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to live in a fantasy that's nice?
But then you go, and then you go into the morals of telling children about Santa Claus.
What about him?
Well, whilst it's all fun and it's all magical, and you could argue, you could easily argue that improves Christmas, that idea of Santa Claus.
What are you saying?
Okay, the other two might not know this, but Santa Claus is But then you got that to deal with when you're a kid, and it's just like shit.
But you say that, but
you shouldn't have told that in the first place.
Stupid thing is, in the metaphorical sense, I actually think he is more real. As an adult, I think that it is a more real concept than when I was a kid, because it is a metaphor. The
spirit of Christmas rather than... But I don't know how well a 5-year-old could grasp that concept, because I can't even speak anymore.
Yeah, well, that's why religions should really just be kids.
What, because I can't speak anymore?
Yeah. Anyway, do we have much more to say? I know it's a massive subject. I know we do, but can we realistically say it in one podcast is what I'm saying, I suppose. Movies.
I want to talk about the MCU.
Oh, fucking hell. So do I, but that's a whole fucking podcast series, not just one episode.
Okay, we can overview it. And I think it's interesting, and I think mostly through one suggestion on their world building, they've managed to create. I think it's 20 films now, or it's going to be with Captain Marvel, of a whole universe.
Hmm.
And that suggestion being putting that little extra bit of world building after the credits.
Yeah, because it's essentially finishing everything off with a teaser, isn't it?
Yeah, with the nature of film, and this is why a lot of people like the depth of TV a lot more, is that it's only about 2 hours long if it's a long film.
I mean, the way it's, I mean, that kind of parallels the way that the world has gone with TV is that everybody's far more into binge watching now. I mean, I put my hands up. I will tend not to watch something first time it comes out because I don't want to wait from week to week.
But you couldn't make a Game of Thrones movie. You just couldn't.
No.
The characters would... like if you just got all those characters in 1-2 hour block,
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
you would just be like, wait, who's what? Okay, we're now.
Well, it was difficult enough just in the hour-long episodes.
Yeah,
But
there's so many characters in that.
But yeah, the thing I like about the MCU is how expansive it is, not just in terms of characters and storyline and how they all interlink with each other, but because of that, because there are so many different incarnations, if you like, or different series that are based in that universe, they can be so all-encompassing in style because they're all linked. But I mean, at the moment, me and Starstuff are watching Marvel Runaways, which is on Sky, and it's very different in style to what we were watching before, which was Daredevil. And the whole Defenders thing on Netflix is fantastic, but it's a whole lot darker than a lot of the other stuff.
Because of the nature of that, something like Thor Ragnarok is possible, which is, for the most part, actually a comedy, even though it does deal with big picture
Look
stuff.
at the difference between Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, you look at the tone of that, and then you think, oh, how the hell... I mean, Infinity War, the way they've blended the different atmospheres of the different threads in that. I mean, how do you fit Guardians of the Galaxy kind of humour into that storyline? That they've managed to do it. It blends brilliantly.
And what they needed to do that was actually change Thor's tone, because he wouldn't fit with that for most of the film.
Yeah, Thor's more of a comic character now, isn't he?
But you can still see that pain.
I don't think I've seen Ragnarok, you know.
You need to see it. It's fucking brilliant.
I don't think I have.
Because he's trying to mask that with his ego.
There's one. I'm sure there's one of the
mask all he's lost.
I'm sure there's one of the Captain America ones I haven't seen as well.
Winter Soldier, maybe.
I'm not sure if it's that or Civil War.
Civil War's.
Which is the one with the town that gets ripped out of the planet?
That's Age of Ultron.
Right. Yeah. That was kind of got fairly bad reviews, I thought, but I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think it serves well as a foreshadowing moment in Iron Man's journey.
I haven't seen
towards that sort of chosen one thing, and that's, I think, how they're going
obviously,
to try and
like with any franchise,
move forward with the Infinity War thing.
There are different levels of being canon, if you like. I haven't seen either of the Ant-Man films, and I don't know how much canon they are.
They are canon.
Yeah. I mean, Spider-Man, it's really only Homecoming, is it, that's kind of canon for MCU purposes? Because,
yeah, well, the Spider-Man's been rebooted a fair amount of times.
Yeah.
You got the Tobey Maguire stuff, but that doesn't link in at all with the MCU.
But then originally, I say originally,
something that I did find...
the Hulk stuff.
Yeah.
The earlier Hulk stuff.
I mean, there was a early Hulk film that had nothing to do with the MCU as well. But there's also the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, which has
a different actor for Hulk than the rest of the MCU.
Yeah,
it has Edward Norton instead of.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that film. But is that still MCU though? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I can handle a change in actor, I think.
And that end credit scene links it all together.
Yeah,
that conversation with General Ross.
But the Hulk, I'm not sure if I've actually seen the Hulk. That's not MCU canon, is it? That was because it all kind of started again.
That was actually Mark Ruffalo, though, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
It all kind of started again. Well, the MCU was pretty much born with Iron Man, wasn't it? Because Marvel were in serious trouble. You know, they were really on the rocks when Disney bought them.
Yeah.
And pretty much, I mean, it was kind of an intriguing parallel between Robert Downey Jr.'s career and Marvel. You know, they saved each other, basically.
Yeah.
With that one film, Iron Man. The success
He's pretty
of that
much
film.
the godfather of the MCU.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. And he acts like it.
Yeah.
Because he is that character.
I've only ever seen him in one other film. Which, if you haven't seen it, is a nostalgia... well, it's not nostalgia, but it's a history lesson for the 80s. If you ever get a chance to go see Weird Science,
I have not seen that.
It's fantastically cheesy, but Robert Downey Jr. is in it.
Oh,
He
it
plays a
wasn't
teenager.
Mark Ruffalo. Oh, I don't know where I got that idea from. Oh well.
Got a hit in the fields from Runaways last episode. Stan Lee made a cameo.
Oh yeah, he died recently.
I don't know. I don't know what the last cameo he would have made would have been.
I think he might be in Endgame, Avengers Endgame.
Do you know what I would? I mean, things like special editioning Star Wars, yeah, in some ways is kind of, I don't like that, but that is one thing that I would approve of, would be if they just inserted a small extra scene at the end of Infinity War with Stan Lee dissolving. That would
Wow, that'd be depressing.
Yeah,
They might have to do a Grand Moff Tarkin on that.
Yeah, it would be poetic.
Yeah, that's something that we didn't talk about, the reconstruction of Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars.
I thought that was more convincing than the Leia reconstruction.
But they're still both very realistic.
Oh, yeah. It's not perfect.
And it's a testament to just how far CGI has moved on.
Yeah.
Especially from something like the prequels, because that now looks quite dated. Should we begin the process of wrapping up?
Yeah, I think, as with a lot of these subjects that we discuss, we open a can of worms.
Yeah,
that we could literally spend whole series on.
Because
Star Wars could have its own.
You'll know more about this than us, potentially, because we haven't yet recorded that New Year's announcement. I'm going to be rejigging. We have a big database of video plans. I'm going to be rejigging that a fair amount, probably, to account for any changes.
So until now, Breaking Bollocks has been a Thursday night fortnightly endeavour, has it not?
Mm-hmm.
And in the in-between weeks, we have had...
Game night. Well, hang on. We'll have announced this properly if it's going to be a thing. If it's not, it's edited out. But we think it's probably going to be a thing. We will have probably fully discussed what is going to be likely next week is the Bollocks report.
Yay! Oh, I already want to hear a jingle when you say that.
Now for the Bollocks report. Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, something like that.
Just you making random noises with your mouth,
and
squeeze,
and a massive choir going Bollocks. Sorry,
what was that stupid horn you were telling me about?
The flugelhorn. That's not stupid.
It's a stupid name.
Right. That's it. I'm getting my flugelhorn out one of these days.
It's a stupid name.
So
agree that it's a stupid name.
It is a stupid name, but then so is a ocarina or a...
Yeah, but it's not a funny name. That's not a funny name.
Sousaphone.
Sousaphone is funny. It also makes a funny noise.
Trombone's funny.
Have you seen them following around Jeremy Hunt with a sousaphone?
I always thought Tam Tam was a bit rude.
And because I did vote in... that's the last leg that did that. I did vote in this year's one. And from looking at the replies on Twitter, I think it's going to be Jacob Rees-Mogg that they're going to follow around with a sousaphone.
Ace. Hey, when is this going to happen?
Probably in the last one of the year.
I've got to see that.
Dick of the Year award. They're going to award it to whoever probably following around with a sousaphone.
Excellent. Anyway, yeah. I like flugelhorns. Pardon me.
Anyway, so yeah, and the reason that we've been mostly avoiding like current news is because, well, for one, the current news cycle, that's going really fast right now, so these are getting really outdated.
Yeah, we're already out of date by the time...
Yeah, we're recording this on the 19th of December.
I was actually thinking our new format is probably going to be out of date by the time it goes out
Happy
anyway.
New Year, by the way, if you didn't see Civilization 5 Part 13.
2019.
Or a New Year's announcement.
Yeah.
Go watch the New Year's announcement, because this will make a lot more sense.
Indeed.
Yeah, so have a look at that next week. It'll be something quite different, I think. We're going to do it a lot more structured than this, because The idea with this is just like...
We're going to try and actually do a podcast instead of just sitting and doing fuck all, talking bollocks. Well, people like talking bollocks, don't they?
Yeah. I quite like that we just can talk for...
It does wander. It does go off topic.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's what it is.
You call for a bloody world revolution or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, well. One can dream. I have a dream.
I was thinking of John Lennon.
Imagine.
Yeah. Anyway. So that'll be like recorded the day before stuff, so hopefully the Orbiter's not busy on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that because of that, it may not always go out exactly the same time, but best way to find out is to subscribe and get alerts and
Hit
notifications.
the bell.
Yeah.
I did the thing. I'm a YouTuber now.
And buy our merch.
Mm-hmm.
Please, we're poor. Really, we are poor. So yeah, let's go.
We really shouldn't have gone to YouTube.
What?
We really shouldn't have gone to YouTube if we're poor.
Why? Oh yeah, because you just can't make any money on that. Yeah.
Album's fucked. Anyway, before we get depressed about money.
I'm not depressed.
Okay. Closing point before the camera actually runs out of battery. We might need to switch to rolling words being like you did with education for a little bit. Is the point of films is the message that they're trying to get across. Oh, and also very briefly want to talk about Edgar Wright.
Who?
Edgar Wright, the director of the Cornetto trilogy.
Oh Jesus!
And Ant-Man.
Oh fucking hell! No, just no.
And Baby Driver.
No.
Did you see Baby Driver? I haven't.
Well, look, seeing as you're going to be shifting around the subjects, why don't we make this a two-parter?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because we're running out of time quickly.
Yeah, I think we need a second part for this.
And I've got so much more I would love to say. We've, let's do a two-parter.
Yeah, sure.
So this would be episode
25.
Now, are we going to start a second season, or seeing as we've had a fortnight off?
Well, actually, since it's a new year, it makes sense to. This is the first episode of season 2,
episode 1. And we still got no fucking idea what we're doing.
Yeah, but I like it. But it'll still be called. We'll still number them upwards so we can have a 100th episode thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's going to be yet. But that'll be 2020. We can think about that then.
Yeah. So the next one will be Movies Part 2.
Yeah, I guess.
The sequel.
Oh God, we're becoming just like Hollywood. Yeah, because we do actually need to talk a lot about Hollywood culture and that whole Me Too thing, because that's quite a lot to do with Hollywood. Edgar Wright, which I want to talk about because he's a fucking brilliant director.
And I was wanting to reference Oscar Wilde again about...
The politics of people that make films is quite interesting, like them firing James Gunn, and quite recently saw something about Graham Linehan being an absolute cunt. But he did also write a lot of really funny series like Father Ted and Fuck Off Notifications and The IT Crowd. So there's a little bit of uncomfortable stuff to do with who makes what.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of the stuff that the Weinstein Company made.
Yeah.
Made.
Been a lot of stuff come out of that company.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, there's definitely a lot more cans of worms that are under the category of movies.
There will be at least one sequel.
There may be a part 3 if we really have a lot of shit to say.
Maybe this should be episode 4.
Should we just start an entirely new podcast just talking about movies for the entire year at this point? Nah, let's not. No.
Well, some of the subjects we talk about are a bit more difficult to... I don't know. It's a new year. Let's talk about it off camera.
I'm not talking about that seriously.
I am.
We did briefly discuss, because we did want to make a second podcast, mainly just for variety, but also because...
you guys are our most keen audience.
Yeah, and also game night's a nightmare to edit from the sounds of things and set up.
Yeah.
But we will have those, we probably mentioned this on little one-off where we'll keep the score going, because I fucking won that.
When's that first one-off going out?
I will check.
I think that's a goer.
Goer.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
It might actually be Go. The game Go.
No, it's Cards Against Humanity Drunk Edition.
No, that's going to be a Bob.
Is it?
That was a New
that's a
Year's
shame.
Bob.
I think the public would like to see that.
We probably do that another time.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe not drink, I don't know. It's not really true about alcohol, I don't think.
What, Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah. This is high quality content.
Yeah, let's go.
Hang on. Oh,
Let's go, the camera's going to die.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a second part, because this has got a lot of other shit in it. And I also want to talk about like the importance of filming.
Stop the podcast.
Okay. I need a big red button just to start the intro.
See
Okay.
what you fucking
The
done now.
camera's turned on.
Right. There is now text scrolling on the screen,
Okay.
and it's Firebolt's fault.
Sorry. I mean, dear listeners don't
I
care.
did tell you.
Dear listeners don't care. It's a mainly audio thing.
That doesn't mean we can carry on. They'll have had enough by now.
Okay, well, we'll do the outro now, because the camera stopping is a good thing to cut me off.
And I want some sleep tonight. Why do you laugh about that? Like it's an alien concept.
Because I really do.
Please.
Okay, fine, I'll finish the fucking podcast. We'll have way more to talk about in the second part, and it might be just as long or longer than this.
To be continued.
Bum bum ba-da-dum. Sorry. Bum bum ba-da-dum. Anyway, I'm Firebolt,
I've been the Orbiter.
and this has been
Movies.
so 25 of Breaking Bollocks.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 25. Or season... No, we'll just keep the counting going up. We can unofficially call this season 2. Anyway, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We'd really appreciate if you support us on various things, obviously subscribing on YouTube, Twitch, following us on Twitter or Facebook. We have a Discord server that you can join and talk to us and other people, and a website where you can check out blog posts.
And obviously this isn't free for us to run, so if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Patreon page where you can donate monthly and get subscriber rewards. We also have a Stream Elements tipping page where you can make one-off donations. The links are all in the description.
Farewell.
See you next time.